Clock shows 7, so will we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? We'll begin this August meeting of the Council. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, I note the presence of a quorum. Do you concur?
I confirm the presence of a quorum.
Okay, and an agenda was circulated earlier. Are there any questions or changes to the agenda? Hearing none. The first order of business is we move to a public hearing, and we will hear two different things tonight. One is related to amendments to the Glendale Village zoning code regarding harboring of chickens. The other is amendment to the historic design guidelines. So we'll start with the public hearing concerning the proposed amendments to the Village of Glendale zoning code 154.55 related to the harboring of chickens. So in the packet was circulated the said proposed amendments. The process for this is that council will look at this, comment on it tonight, and if there is a desire to move forward with these changes, there will be legislation in September. Am I correct, David? Mm-hmm. On both occasions, tonight and in September, there'll be opportunity for public comment if anyone wants to make comment. But first, I would like to see if there's any discussion amongst council, or at council's pleasure, would you like David to try to summarize this for us?
I had one thought. This has been discussed at some point, but I think that it's not necessary to specify that eggs shall not be sold. I think the previous verbiage about chickens are harbored for personal use only, and the fact that 12 is the maximum number covers that.
Okay. This was mainly handled in the Laws Committee and with David. So the comment about eggs shall not be sold, is that something we can respond to, David?
I would say, based on a study of these kinds of similar codes across a number of other communities, making eggs available for sale or prohibiting sale of eggs is a very common restriction in those codes. The intent is to prohibit the operation of commercial facilities for chicken keeping. I think that the omission or removal of that language, in my opinion, blurs that slightly to say that there's it's not explicitly forbidden, so therefore there's a potential for an opportunity for it to occur. That's my opinion based on studying other codes from other municipalities. I don't know, Ms. Fischel.
I'd just like to, yes, thank you, David. I just want to add that we did discuss this at Laws meeting. The FDA describes eggs as a risky food. I think that's the term they use. There's, I think, 35 of them or 38 of them. Eggs being one of them because of the potential for salmonella. Mm-hmm. I don't think the village wants to go down the path of permitting the sale of eggs, which is a risky food. And I wish I could remember the exact name they call it, but and I believe that's why other municipalities and other communities don't permit the sale of eggs. Mm-hmm. If we permit the sale of eggs, I think that then we go down the path also of perhaps other the sale of other items that might also be risky. I know that there is an analogy to like sale of produce, but those aren't. The produce is like tomatoes from your garden. If they were cooked, then there would be a risk involved. They're not. The produce is fresh. It's so there's no risk. But with eggs, the potential for salmonella and probably some other bacteria. I just don't think the village wants to support that.
Okay.
It was a unanimous vote by the committee to approve this language.
It was, and I recall through all the discussion, there was opportunity for public input, and when we got to the end of this, no one brought that up again. I also recall there are a lot of regulations around the sale of eggs or that type of food, and I don't think it's going to be easy for anyone to pass whatever laws are required to be able to legally sell eggs in the state of Ohio anyway. So I'm comfortable with the language as it is, but of course council has to be.
Hey, Joan, it's been a few months, but didn't we agree that in laws, didn't we say that there's nothing from stopping someone from giving their eggs away to a neighbor,
Correct.
or maybe even bartering or something, but we just don't wanna go
Yeah.
down the,
Right.
Private donation or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right, yeah, you can bring it to your work, break room, you can, give it to your neighbors, that's perfectly fine, but, I think when the FDA describes eggs as being, that kind of a food, I just don't think the village can support that.
No.
So to clarify, someone can say, I am giving away a dozen eggs for a $5 donation.
I don't know if that happens or not, but we're not going to permit
No.
the sale of eggs.
Okay.
I think the
Right.
point
It's,
is,
it's gonna be hard to enforce.
I think the
It
point
would
would be
be
is you
hard
can put a
to
sign up in
enforce,
front of
I
your
guess.
house saying eggs for sale or sit out on a table like the tomatoes
Yeah.
to sell your eggs.
Mhm.
Because then you have people who are like doing things to get higher egg production and they may be, more chickens, although 12 is the limit.
But we can't control any private transaction.
Any
No.
black market egg activity.
Black market eggs, just like we really can't
Any
control
buy-sell
anyone
trade
not
page,
stopping at a stop
egg
sign if the
and I- you know,
policeman's
it's-
not there.
it's-
It's a
it's a-
similar situation.
Private.
Are there any
location.
other comments about these particular changes or amendments?
My one other comment is about saying no chicken shall be slaughtered on the premises. I think we heard some really good instruction about that sometimes a chicken dies. I mean, slaughtering is not a visible event, it's not a big bloody event, and I think, I'm not sure if we want to get into that.
I think it comes down to the definition of slaughtering, as in slaughtering is in the sense of a butchering of a chicken, and then the sale of its meat versus some chickens are at the end of their life. So we don't want the slaughtering of chickens or any other
Any
fowl.
other animal, right? I mean,
Yes.
if we permit
In
the
the
slaughtering
village.
of chickens, do we
Right.
permit the slaughtering of?
whatever
So
else.
what is the definition of slaughtering that we're working with?
Well, we do not, David, you can, but we don't want to permit the slaughtering of chickens or any other fowl.
Under the interpretation of the code and under the discretion of enforcement for this, if we receive a complaint that someone is taking chickens and is killing them and then either hanging them or doing any kind of other gruesome thing with them that is visible and apparent to their neighbors, having this language allows us to enforce that against them. If somebody needs to kill a sick bird or has other kind of natural chicken rearing duties to attend to when it comes to this sort of a thing, I would say that any chicken keeper that's going to do those is going to be attentive to that, is going to be able to do this work with care and with discretion, so that we won't receive a complaint, a potential complaint. But I think removing it would allow an opportunity for somebody to do something that we don't want them to do, in the sense of a public kind of display.
And also, if you're slaughtering somebody's slaughtering like 5 chickens and they've got them strung up by
Mhm.
their feet to pop their heads off, and then I have actually slaughtered chickens before, and it's just like your neighbors really don't want to watch you do that, and it smells bad.
So it does not cover discrete culling.
No.
Yeah, again, going back to, if we haven't defined it, just pulling up Oxford Dictionary, it's the killing of animals for their meat. It's the slaughter is the killing for the purpose
Got
of the
it.
commodity versus killing for other reasons.
Okay.
Any other comments about the amendments from council? It seems as though these changes We've spent a lot of time on this. I think, would it be safe to say at this point, council would be ready to hear legislation for this in the September meeting? Okay. Is anyone greatly opposed to this, the amendments?
I have a question, and that is who is responsible for enforcing this? The police department, MIM, or
NIC. It would,
NIC?
because this is under Chapter 94, this falls under the Property Maintenance Code, so this would come through the village administration and NIC as part of their code enforcement responsibilities.
Okay. So before leaving this, is there anyone, we'll take an opportunity, is there anyone from the audience that wishes to address this, these amendments?
I just have a question. I don't know if I have the whole ordinance. I printed off what I saw on the website. It stops at H though. Is there more to that?
So, there's actually two pieces to this
Okay.
ordinance. The section that council is addressing tonight is the zoning code section. That's
Just
a
this
chapter
section.
154. The chapter 94 items, which we've discussed through laws and claims and a few other meetings, those will come up as part of the September legislation.
Okay.
So we're passing both sections as one piece of legislation, or rather presenting them as one piece of
Presenting it,
Okay.
legislation.
So will the other part be discussed later?
At the September meeting.
the
those
So
September
there's
meeting.
more to it than just this? then?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Then I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. All right. So at this point, David, I think we'll move on from these amendments. Looking then at the amendments to the historic guidelines, Glendale Planning and Historic Preservation, a resolution of recommendations of amendments to the Village of Glendale Historic Design Guidelines. This one, David, I think you can summarize very quickly.
Mayor, I jump in and make the statement that we're opening the public hearing for that part.
Oh, okay. That we are opening the public hearing for this particular,
Yes,
for these particular amendments, so.
yes.
Again, I stand corrected. We are now in the public hearing section, or opening the public hearing section for proposed amendments to the historic guidelines. And reading again, a resolution of recommendation of amendment to the Village of Glendale Historic Design Guidelines. So David, will you give us background for this?
Certainly, Mayor. This is a change that originated in the Planning Commission to amend a section of the village's historic guidelines related to the height limitation for new construction in the historic district. A previous version of the guidelines, as you can see in section 1, or the current version rather of the guidelines, as you can see in section 1, reads, any new construction shall not exceed 1.5 stories in height at street level grade. The Planning Commission had two meetings of deliberation on this, and has ultimately recommended the language in section 2 that reads, any new construction should not exceed 2.5 stories in height, to be amended within the guidelines document for their review and approval of upcoming applications for new construction in the historic district.
Okay, are there any questions about this set of amendments? Seems logical. Was there discussion of a height restriction also, David? And do we need to be concerned about that?
Well, it would amount to a height restriction that you cannot exceed that 2.5 stories.
Mhm.
The 2.5 stories is the zoning code's height restriction on residential properties in the village. So it would essentially align the guidelines with the zoning code as far as what is appropriate, meaning
Number of
that
stories. Okay.
the zoning code permits 2.5 stories, and the guidelines do not recommend exceeding that. So
Okay,
it is cohesive.
very good. Okay. Any discussion amongst council? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address these amendments?
I just have one question. We're talking about residents, right? These are homes, not accessory structures. referring to.
Right.
Okay. And also, you know, one thing that has come to my husband and my awareness is the what seems to be sort of an unusual statement of what is the height of a building. I understand that there are some rules and definitions about like roof heights. And, you know, I don't think that the average person hearing about the height of a building necessarily thinks that if it's a, a mansard roof, that it's really not as high as the building is. It's where, you know, the middle weight of the building is, or something above the basically above the structure, and I don't have that exactly right, but my point being that I think we need to be thoughtful about making decisions about what should be an acceptable height for something, when the reality is the height isn't actually from the ground to the top of the peak of that building. It's actually from, you know, where you guys measure within the industry is the height of that building. And sometimes, like in the case of what's being built next to us, and I realize it's not a residence, it's an accessory structure, but it's a lot taller as far as the actual height of the building versus what it physically it's a lot taller in actuality if you go from the ground and measure to the top of the peak versus what technically you guys are calling the height. And as a result, when you have a building next to it, like in our case, where we've got a garage that is best case 5 or 6 feet from that building, it can look overwhelming. And I'm not saying, you know, I realize this is a different situation. This may be house to house or something, but I just think that we need to be very thoughtful about aesthetically what things look like as far as the top of a building versus what we call within, I guess, the construction industry, the height of the building. And David, maybe you could say a little bit more about that. I don't know that I'm doing a great job, or whether people understand what I'm saying. Or maybe I've lost you too.
No, I understand your point is the essentially that in architecture and building, a story, which is the measurement that we use in our code, is measured from, and the exact word escapes me, but it's essentially, if you think of a roof as a triangle or a pyramid, it's the center point within that pyramid. It's not the tip, it's not anywhere else along the slope, it's actually measured from within the center of that point. That is where you would measure what was essentially a story. The zoning code limits accessory, or limits main buildings, so homes, residences, to that 2.5 story measurement, and then accessory structures are limited to 1.5 stories. So measuring from ground level to that point, you would have, for an accessory structure, a maximum of 15 feet. If you figure a story is approximately 10 feet, then you would have a maximum of 15 feet to get to that point, which means that the roof could extend above that point, but that for the purposes of measuring a story, it would be measured from that center point of the roof structure.
Okay.
So my point being, that being, if people kind of follow where I'm going, aesthetically, I mean, that may be a non-issue when we're talking about residences, but it could be an issue if it overwhelms everything else that's around it. That technically what they're allowed to get away with, according to the way you've written it, and the way the industry talks about it, may not be something that we want in some parts of the village. And the other thing is, for example, our neighbors next door have, they have a basement that is, and I, honestly, I'm showing my ignorance here, so I don't know exactly. I haven't read up on this, but it just occurred to me while we were talking about this. They have, what we would call a basement level is actually, a third of it is above ground. So we can see windows, side windows that look into that room, and in actuality, they finished off their basement, so for all intents and purposes, it's another it's another story. Now, it may be addressed already in the code, but if it isn't, you know, the fact that already the basement is above the ground this much, and then you're talking about adding another 2.5 stories potentially with only a certain amount of setback. I just think that we need to be, again, thoughtful about, again, you know, does that come into play? Does that make the building, again, look so big and overwhelming next to what is around it that it might not be appropriate? So I just raise those 2 points just as something to be sensitive to as you're looking at this and really contemplating even the definition of what we're saying, two and a half story. And I think we, you know, need to be very careful about what we say and make sure that it's reflective with what's realistic versus what, for example, the industry talks about, like back to my idea about the roof, and also what, you know, in actuality, us as neighbors are encountering when we're talking about putting in buildings next to each other. Like I said, from the standpoint of, you know, what is in theory a basement level versus what in actuality like we have. I mean, we've got a very large building next to us and it's fine, it suits our house, but it may not everywhere. So I just raise those 2 levels of sensitivity.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mayor. Anyone else want to address these changes? So, yes.
Does page 42 spell out that the house is 2.5 stories and the accessory like a garage or shed is only 1.5?
No, but the zoning code does.
The zoning code does.
And this is the guidelines portion, so this is, you'll notice the change in language from shall to should. This is, it's just essentially just that, it's guidelines, it's not firm code, it's not legal requirement, so. Any new construction would have to comply with the zoning code and then go to planning for their review. But it essentially is echoing that nothing is gonna exceed 2.5 stories, without special dispensation, essentially.
Thank you.
Okay. So this as well will come before council in September as an ordinance. There'll be opportunity to address it again at that time by council or any resident that wishes to address it. Okay. At this point, then, we will be closing the hearing and going back to the regular council meeting. So the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. So the July 7 minutes were circulated. Are there any comments about those? Is there a motion to approve July 7 minutes?
So moved.
And a second from Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Now we come to public comment for our August 4 meeting, and I note that Elizabeth Oldages has requested to speak, so Elizabeth?
Okay, first off, on behalf of the Glendale Heritage Preservation Group, we want to extend our deepest condolences on the loss of Tom. He was a great asset to not only the village, but really to the depot, and we appreciate it very much, what he has done for us, and I just want to extend our condolences. And speaking of the depot, I want to extend our sincerest thanks to Mayor Bessel, Dave Lunson, and all the village crew for helping bail us out from being underwater this spring, and forcing us to close the depot for 2.5 months. So I just wanted to express tonight what we are doing. I want to introduce to council what we are doing to help bring the families back into the museum and help kind of wake everybody back up that, hey, we're here and this is what we've got going. We created a scavenger hunt, and it's a free event. There are 28 locations throughout the perimeter of the village, and people are challenging me. Yes, these are all within Glendale. So it's a free event, and we encourage everyone to partake. And you're going to get not only the 28 locations, but you get a fact sheet that tells you a little bit about it. It's just a way to learn a little bit about the village, hopefully get our neighbors talking to neighbors. You know, COVID is well gone, and this is an opportunity to get out and meet one another. So I'm going to invite each of you to.
It's a challenge. The challenge is all right.
It's a simple process. Find the location. It's okay to phone a friend, but find a location and then take a selfie in front of it, and bring your children. And when you're finished, the kids will get and you'll get a cookie too if you take a part of it. You'll get a free cookie to the Bluebird Bakery. But just stop by the depot and share your experience with us. Okay? If you're interested, you can just email me at ghp@fuse.net, and we'll register you so that we have you. We just want to track and see how many people are taking advantage of this fun activity.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That sounds like a nice thing for the residents to do.
There's some obscure points on here.
Okay.
You
It'll be tricky.
Yeah.
That's good.
scooted right by that.
Don't want it to be too easy. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to address council? Okay. Mr. Reganold?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Reganold. I live on Ivy Avenue, and I've got to tell you, the road there is just a complete mess. My wife Becky and I really feel misled about what was to happen on Ivy Avenue and the streets in the village of Glendale. I know 3 years ago we passed a property tax levy, and the implication of that levy was clear that the roads would be better. We've been told several times since then that Ivy would be repaved. We've been told over and over again, and I don't remember anyone ever saying the words to us, Ivy will be repaved if you pay for it. So what I'm learning after a lot of digging now is that 3 years ago it would have cost about $400,000 to repair Ivy. Last year it would have cost about $1.2 million to repair Ivy. And now it's going to cost $2.875 million to repave Fountain and Ivy Avenue. And the levy that you're proposing to put in place tonight, I think you're proposing to put it in place tonight, by my calculation, would increase Glendale's share of the property tax by a whopping 28%. Almost an unheard of amount. In my mind, the village engineer, surely, this should have been his job, surely to make everyone on council more aware of what happened. And maybe he did, I don't know, maybe they did. I know David and I are going back and forth on some records there. The council, I feel, should have been signaling to residents a lot longer ago just how bad this problem is. When people hear $2.875 million in Glendale, I mean, maybe I'm just the first person to hear that number, but it's a scary number. And I believe that you as our government need to be accountable and take ownership of this problem, but I don't see you approaching it in that way. You're sending the message to me that as a Glendale property owner, we are responsible for making road repairs now. And I think it's the exact wrong message, because really the fabric in Glendale is changing right in front of your very eyes. There's no more post office. There's no more bank. We've started to have to pay for services like trash, and now we get to pay for roads. And the obvious question to almost anyone, if they're asking, is, well, if it's roads now, what's it going to be next? Are we going to be asked to pay for the police department in a levy? Are we going to be asked to pay for the fire department in a levy? Are we going to be asked to pay for brush removal every time we want to have brush removed from in front of our house? I think the message Glendale needs to be sharing is that, hey, we're in this with the residents. And that's why I'm asking you to spend some of your VPGI money to pay down the cost of the street repairs over 10 years. This is a perfect use of the money. It's meant for capital projects. That's exactly what this is. This is a capital project. And when I continually hear you all say, we've got to have this money for income generation, to me it's just a very simplistic outlook you have. It could be easily solved by budgeting. You surely didn't take the approach with the fire department when you spent $2 million from the VPGI fund that you couldn't spend any of the money. So why are you taking it now on probably the biggest single capital project that's ever faced the village? At a minimum, the village should spend $1.5 million of the VPGI money towards the $6 million cost of road repairs over 10 years. I noticed David has been so good with sending me information that I've requested that 2 years ago you had a $246,000 surplus. And last year you had a $258,000 surplus. my hats are off to you. Congratulations. That's at least what the number said that I looked at.
You have about a minute.
By taking 1.5, I'm almost done, from the VPGI funds and using some of your surplus funds, you could reduce this property levy by a lot. High property taxes in Ohio are just a huge problem. I've told you all about it. I've got this one sweet older lady from South Glendale. Every time there's a levy that comes on the ballot, she calls me up and says, how am I going to afford that $40 extra a month? I'm going to have to just tell her the truth this time when she calls, and she will. And the truth is, you've got the money. You just don't want to spend it. That's the truth. So the best solution to the road problem is a shared responsibility between the village government and the people, not a 28% tax levy. The optics of you not spending any of your surplus money or VPGI money on this, it just isn't reasonable. The correct use of a rainy day fund like VPGI is for a rainy day. It's surely a rainy day in Glendale. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Is there anyone else that wishes to address council? Mr. Parrish.
Yes. My name is Kevin Parrish, resident of the village of Glendale at 176 Washington. Our family has had residency in this village for over a century. I'm here as a representative for the people of color because in this National Historic Village of Glendale, the 6 council members that you see seated here do not represent us. So it's been necessary for a person in my position to be appointed to represent those that go unrepresented by this group of council members. They took an oath to represent us, but yet they do not. My question to this council today is a question about Kevin Bell, our chief engineer at wastewater treatment plant. The chief of police, he is an employee of the village of Glendale. The fire chief, he is an employee of the village of Glendale. Kevin Bell, the utilities chief, is an employee of the village of Glendale. And our administrator is an employee of the village of Glendale. Yet, when I ask questions about why, with the horrific water issues that we have in this village, and Kevin Bell having employment with over 20 years in the water department, is not consulted, doesn't come to any of these meetings, doesn't give any reports, and yet they tell me that he doesn't have to. Although he's an employee of the village of Glendale, and David has authority over him as his supervisor, David didn't hire him. The village of Glendale hired him. And under the rules of employment, when you treat employees different than others, then you are discriminating. Now, for verification and clarification for you guys, you need to talk with your solicitor to see if that's unlawful, but I know it is. So my question is, what is the lie that you're covering up, that you put Kevin Bell in protective custody, that he cannot give insight to the water issues that we have in this village? We've heard nothing from him in years. What is the lie that's so serious that you guys lie about what's going on here? When we had the shit spill up here at the bridge on Sharon Road, we got a loan right there in front of the wastewater treatment plant from DEFA, and we employed a design and planning committee that in the last 36 months have not come up with a plan or design, so there's no construction. Is this the type of decision-making our administration makes, that an important problem comes up and 3 years later, we're still with the problem with no solution? They're still working on Albion after they put a new line in there. We still have an absence of honesty and transparency in this village that says that you guys are covering up a lot of lies that are dangerous to this community. And yet you see nothing wrong with it. I've got 6 council members here that don't represent me, so I'm here representing myself and others like me because they have failed in their moral
You have about a minute.
the moral obligation of being council people and doing public servitude work. It's embarrassing for me to address this council and see how deficient they are in the decision making. We have a detention pond on Oak that was just a plain blunder. You catch water at the bottom of the hill and the destruction of the water starts at the top. Yet we get no feedback on how successful it was. And yet you don't see the need for a broader outlook on what we need to do to fix this problem. It's gonna end this disastrously. You guys are just unaware of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Is there anyone else that wishes to address council at this time? Hearing none. All right. We'll move on with the remainder of the meeting. These are reports from mayor, village administrator, standing committees, treasurer. Mayor's report. I'd like to address some of the comments made, and then I have some other things to address through normal course of business. Regarding the comments about Kevin Bell, our structure in the village is that the fire chief, the police chief, and the administrator report to the mayor. Those people attend our meetings. The public works director and the enterprise director report to David. He represents them at the meetings. So that's very simple. That's been explained many times. Some lie that's being covered up, I don't know what that could be. We're in compliance with Ohio EPA. Things are good at the water plant. I don't understand what that question is all about. Regarding Albion, the second set of work on Albion, there was work done with stormwater there. We're now replacing water mains, so it's 2 different projects. That's very easy to explain. There's nothing being covered up or hidden on Albion, so that's that situation. Comments about the proposed tax levy that council will act on tonight. I am truly sorry if anyone feels they were misled with the last property tax increase. The last property tax increase was for the general fund. It included roads and many, many other things. There's been a lot of money spent on roads in the last 5 years, and that continues. I don't know where the numbers come from that said that Ivy could be repaid for $400,000 previously. Maybe that was true. However, there is minimal or no road bed in large sections of Ivy. So even then, that number would have gone up as soon as we understood what was required to repair that road. It probably would have doubled as it has now. As we looked at that, and I understand there are a lot of people that say, let's just go ahead and spend down the VPGI. So I'm going to give a little bit too much information, but just to kind of bring us to where we are now. Years ago, the state of Ohio ended the estate tax, which was probably a good thing, but that impacted our village greatly. our village typically would receive, as a part of that estate tax, a certain portion of everyone who passed away's estate. About the time that that ended, there was one large estate, and that person's estate left a significant amount of money to the village. And right about that time is when the state of Ohio stopped the estate tax. So our council decided it was in the best interest of our village at that time to try to preserve and invest those dollars to replicate the $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 that the village received through estate tax typically every year on average. And with the amount of money we have there now invested, last year was about $270,000, and it'll be a little over $300,000 this year that will be generated to essentially replace what was lost through the loss of the estate tax. Those funds are currently used to repair roads, buy police cars, buy public works trucks, a lot of capital expenditures. If that money is gone, we will be required to probably put on the ballot about to replace $200,000 to $300,000, 2 to 3 mills, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have that money, if we want to try to continue running the village as we have. So not only is it a rainy day for emergency, it's a way to help reduce the tax burden on our residents because of the interest it earns.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity, if we're careful. So if we spend all that down, get ready for a large tax increase or get ready for cuts in services. There's no other way to do it. So that's one piece. And this is a multifaceted issue. I agree 100%. We've had several finance committee meetings, and believe me, these discussions have gone on all the years I've been on council. When I walked in and saw that we were invested in some sort of a 0.5%, and I said, why isn't this money invested? And from that point forward, we've tried to do our best with these invested funds. Okay. The VPGI funds, we get into the principal on occasion, but then we try to do it in such a way that we pace it out, that we can build that principal back up in order again to replace that $200,000 to $300,000 that we would like to have to put towards capital projects every year. So it's carefully thought out and carefully laid out, and carefully budgeted. So now fast forward to today. Ivy Avenue was placed on hold for a year or so because we did want to replace the main. It only makes sense. We had the misfortune of repaving Sharon Road, and then all of a sudden here comes Duke Energy and says, we're gonna do some work there. We even took the time to replace the water main there, and then we repaved that road. And it wasn't in very good shape, but we took the time to do it and try to do it right. We had the same thing in mind for Fountain, Ivy, and is it Wood is the other one?
Forest.
Forest. I'm sorry, I always confuse those two. They're both made of the same thing. Forest and Wood. Okay. And we get into the roadbed. I truly wish the engineers had done more core drilling so we could be prepared better. But it's a matter of, do you want to spend the money on core drilling, or let's just open up the road because we're going to do it anyway? The result would be the same. The cost is going to be more. We looked at that and said, if this happens here, and it also potentially happens on Woodbine, and probably not Lake, but it could, Washington, we feel, is in pretty good shape and may not see the same situation. However, we looked at it and said, we have to do some better planning for this, and we don't want to spend down our VPGI funds. Now, that was council's decision. It may not be someone else's. I see myself as a steward of this village, and I'm speaking for myself only. A steward of this village that keeps it good for the residents now and also sets it up for success in the future. I'm just here for a blip. I really don't matter that much, especially compared to the people that came before us and not only paid taxes, but to put their own personal money into how great of a place Glendale is. We won't replicate that in our lifetime, but we can try. We can try to. We are standing on the shoulders of people that put community first. I see that as my charge, okay? I'll be affected in the same manner as everybody else in this village if there is a tax increase. So enough soapboxing. So we had a much larger dollar amount, and we want to keep the pace of these projects because Washington needs to be repaved. However, it needs a water main too. Albion the same, Forest the same. Where else, David? Lake needs a water main as well. So we want to keep this pace. And we also were in the middle of a strategic plan last year. And very clearly in the strategic plan, people said, the village is great, don't need a lot of other amenities. We want you to take care of infrastructure. Exactly what we've been planning, exactly what we want to continue doing right now. So it dovetails with what our village residents said they wanted. As a matter of fact, the committee that worked on that began calling it the Fix It First plan. Don't give us new stuff, fix what we have. Keep our village beautiful and fix our infrastructure. So we decided, and I'm going into way too much detail, but we decided let's bring Glendale into the big boy realm, and we're going to issue some bonds and see where we can go with this. And we found out because of the village's strong financial position, we could issue bonds. It'd be a very simple process, but it's costly. $50,000, $100,000 to do that, to get yourself set to be able to issue bonds. We had advice from another municipal attorney that said the best thing you can do is put on a levy. You can also then, once that levy is passed, borrow based on that levy if you want to really accelerate things. So we balanced borrowing with paying just out of basic levy funds that will be coming in, taking some principal out of EPGI as we go, but also trying to replace that as we go. And we came up with either a 4.5 or a 5 mil levy was the best way to go. If this, and quite frankly, from my perspective, would allow us to do the work that we have slated to do, plus, okay? If the levy would not pass, we'd be left in a position to either put some surface on that road that is not going to last 20 or 30 years, or we would have to dip into the VPGI fund in a way that would probably extinguish that fund before too long, maybe in 5 or 6 years, which would mean another tax levy if we want to maintain our current level of services. And that levy at that point would be in the range of 3 to 4 mils, and possibly more. So I wanted to explain how this council got to where it is. I believe we are doing careful and thoughtful planning. I'm sorry not everybody came to all the finance committee meetings because there were a bunch of them and they were long, probably longer than the ones I used to have, and we'll blame Kreidler for that because he's cracking the whip saying there's got to be more we can do for the residents. But that was the conclusion that we all came to. One of these will go before our residents in November to decide what they would like to do. The other advantage to this is it is focused only on roads. That's where the money can be spent, which is what our residents have asked us to do through the strategic plan. So there will be more opportunity for comment on this. There will be town halls to try to help explain how we got to where we are and what the village has in mind that will be beneficial to the residents through the spending of these dollars that we have determined we would need to do the spending we'd like to do. And if not all of that money is required, it is still only able to be used for roads, even if it's not all required.
And bridges.
And bridges. And we might be able to stretch it to sidewalks, maybe not. All right. I do not see us in a position going forward where we decide that we're going to a la carte, now we have a fire levy, now we have a police levy, now we have a village administration levy. I believe this is a comprehensive plan that carries us forward for a number of years. And it's focused on the things the village needs most. Okay, without further ado, the rest of the mayor's report. This month, there were no births reported. One resident and one of our public works people passed. Gloria Francis, May 30th, passed away at the age of 74. And relative I know of, Michelle Parrish. And then, very sadly and early, before his 60th birthday, our Tom Alder, for our Public Works Director, passed July 8th at the age of 59. I want to say a few things extra about Tom, and this comes from a writing that was circulated amongst council. Most of us already know Tom was one of the special people in Glendale who helped make it feel like family, both for residents and in the workplace. He's worked in our Public Works Department for 35 years. The last 5 or 6 as the Director of Public Works. To Tom, this was more than just a job. He saw himself as a caretaker of our beautiful village, one in a long line of Public Works directors who delivered excellent services and a personal touch. He had superior knowledge in the skills needed to be a director, everything from roads to buildings, and even experience and expertise in horticulture for our green spaces and our parks. He covered all the bases. He was always available for the village during normal hours or on evenings and weekends. Before I would get the call from a resident saying my power's out, I would get a call from Tom saying, there's a tree down on such and such street, hit power lines, I'm on my way. He took pride in taking care of our community. He truly set the standard. Fortunately for us, and true to his care for our village, Tom has cultivated good leadership in the department to move us forward. We've got some excellent guys coming up. So the village will be fine as we continue into the future. We only wish that his moving on would have been on his terms into retirement instead of him passing away. I know we and our community, Tom's Glendale family, will all miss him. We'll say some prayers for him and for his wife, his son Derek, and his parents. And we'll think of him and remember him fondly every time we look around our fair village. So, can we have a moment of silence for both Gloria and for Tom? May they rest in peace. Amen. Okay, look on the village website or at your email for Tom's visitation coming up. And then Friday, 1 to 2, there'll be a gathering of our Glendale folks here at Town Hall on Friday. Shakespeare in the Park was held this weekend. I was unfortunately not able to attend. I was there to help get it set up, and I understand it went very well. There were several activities in the village that night, so I hope people got there to see Shakespeare in the Park. Glendale Library Fair will take place this Saturday, August 16th from 9 to 5. Glendale Restaurant Week is this week, so go visit the restaurants. A portion of the proceeds of sales will go to the Glendale Back to School Drive run by the Glendale Police Department. And the GHP scavenger hunt. We've heard about that, so go out and sign up for that, get your information, and then win a free cookie. And that is it for the mayor's report. David, do you have an administrative report?
I do, thank you, Mayor. The Albion Avenue water main replacement is currently anticipated to be completed next week. They're making final service connections to residences on Albion. Repaving will take place in either late this month or in early September based on those final completion dates. So information's been circulated to residents in Albion already. We'll continue to update them as we get firmer schedules in place. But the repaving work should take probably 1 to 2 weeks at the most. So Albion residents, once we hit next probably second or third week of September, should be rejoicing that we will not see them again for 40 years, assuming all other infrastructure works as planned. So that work will be completed, and Albion will be essentially finished for Village's infrastructure work for some time. The next stage of forward development's work in the Village is the replacement of bourbon fire hydrants in the Village. We're working on a final schedule for those replacements, but those will continue as Ford finishes out their contract with the Village. Forest, Fountain, and Ivy will be getting some spot repair work this summer or into the fall. Based on the contractor's schedule, this will be short-term improvements to fill potholes, dips, low spots, rough spots that will come up in anticipation of a more in-depth repair next year. We'll get to that as we talk about the road levy, I think, a little later in the meeting. We signed a new contract, a 2-year agreement with IGS for natural gas aggregation. It's at 57.8 cents per 100 cubic feet. The Duke price to compare for July was 0.6349, so pretty significant savings there, and we anticipate more savings as the gas market changes over the next 2 years of the agreement. Then we've had some water main repair, water system repairs. 2 service lines were repaired in July, one on Summit and one on Washington. And then finally, we've rolled out the redesign of the Village's website. We're updating some pages still and essentially moving in, but the new site's a little easier to read, a little easier to follow, and we have some tiles on the front page that direct people to some of our most popular things to do on the website. So looking forward to getting that fully up and running here this week. And unless there are any questions, that concludes my report.
Make sure those bourbons get rounded up. I understand they're worth something on the open market. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll for the other committee reports?
Absolutely. Finance Committee, please.
The Finance Committee did meet on July 22nd, and the mayor did a good job of talking about the issues. We're going to get into this later in the new business. We were all there, and we all talked for an hour about the 5 millage idea for passage for the bridge and roads, a 10-year sunset on that. Tonight, we're going to talk about 4.5 mil instead of 5. And if you saw David's memo this afternoon, if you didn't, he put it in front of you here. He did a good job of kind of a synopsis of why we're looking at 4.5, a little lower than 5. And that spreadsheet, David, there was one thing on, you mentioned we could possibly push back on South Troy and Chester. That doesn't mean we won't do those. It just means that with water mains and sewer and then VPGI and the State Street funds, we would have to work those 2 streets into the flow that we talked about in that spreadsheet. And then also at the bottom of David's memo was about 7 streets that are not in the spreadsheet, but that does not mean they're going to be ignored. So we'll just have to work those in as all of us and future councils work on this infrastructure. The mayor did mention about these roads, we have to do the water, we have to address water and sewer before, and dig those up before we start talking about paving. So this timeline is going to be critical, and we will get into more of this a little later. I think that's it.
Thank you. Fire Committee, please.
Fire Committee met on July 17. The minutes are posted online. But it was a great meeting. We talked about a number of things, covered the operations of the department, about marketing and selling the old fire engine, 245. And I think that's, Mr. Lumsden, that's underway.
That's on the agenda for tonight.
Yep, that's true, that's true. We talked about various budget issues and how it might be important to remind residents of the village who might be interested in volunteering that there are a number of openings in the department. So that might be something to think about. You've got some fire stuff in your blood. And other than that, I think we're going to turn it over to Assistant Chief Lehrman.
Yes, thank you. Got a few things I just want to touch on tonight with council. Pretty busy month again for the fire department this past July. On July 12th and 13th, we hosted a class on fire behavior to teach our firefighters and our fire officers about fire growth, fire development. That was in conjunction with the Ohio Fire Academy. We had 21 of our members present, so almost all of our members were present for that. We also invited Springdale Fire Department in Green Hills. They also attended as well. So about 35 firefighters were trained each day. So it was a really good training, and appreciate the support of the Ohio Fire Academy. On July 22nd through the 25th, we had our safety camp, fire safety and police safety camp. Just want to thank Chief Keese and Lieutenant Barber for their participation on Friday. It's always good where we can share the knowledge of what the police department and the fire department does for the children here in the village. And then lastly, just a few days ago, I had the opportunity to travel down to Ocala, Florida to look at our midpoint inspection of our fire truck.
We do a little Vanna White here.
Yes, and I have some pictures to circulate from that visit. It was a very productive visit. We arrived at the factory on Wednesday, myself and our consultant, Mike Adler. We arrived at 8 a.m. and left about 2 o'clock and flew back on a flight about 6 o'clock. So it was a very productive day. We found some things that the E1 should address before they put the body on it. So we left again, like I said, on Wednesday. Thursday, the body, so where all the compartments, that was gonna get placed on the truck on Friday. So this truck is moving very quickly. There's still graphics and some finishing touches and things that have to be done, but the truck is, we started up, we could test drive it. We could run the pump up if we wanted to, but just for the sake of time, and we're gonna do that in September. So we're looking probably the week of September 8th or September 15th for myself and Chief Yetter, along with Mr. Adler, to go back down for the final inspection. So in about 4 to 5 weeks, this will be a completed fire truck. And we'll get pictures in the next several weeks, and as we do, be happy to circulate this. So, but yeah, that is my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Question, ETA on when we'll see it in the driveway here?
Yeah, so I would think no later than probably middle of October.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll pay the $850,000 out of VPGI. So
Yes.
that account keeps going down. Just to point that out.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, sir. Yep, any other questions? All right, thank you. That's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Laws and claims, please.
Thank you. Laws met July 23rd, and we talked about a couple of things, including amendments to council rules, again, about the change in position of the treasurer to the chief fiscal officer and the clerk to village clerk. Making sure that language is tightened up. We also discussed the charter government question, and we're going to talk about that later a little bit about establishing that. Just as a way of an update in terms of the Glendale Legacy Foundation, current balance is $287,250 in pledges and commitments. Some earmarked for the War Memorial, others for the fire truck. So, that's a certainly good start. And Susan continues to update everyone on the board, and I'll continue to keep everyone else updated about the foundation's activities.
Great news.
Yes, good news, very. That's it. And I think that we will be meeting in August if we can find a date. With vacations and that kind of thing. So I'll keep you updated.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation, please.
We did not meet this past month, but I would like to do so in the next several weeks, and I'll be reaching out about that and getting an agenda together.
Thank you. Police Committee.
Police did not meet in July, and the chief is back from vacation.
Thank you. About 2 months ago, we purchased and issued all of our officers new firearms. During last month, Officer Davidson and myself attended an armorer's course to where we are now certified to service any of those guns for any maintenance issues that may arise. This time to where we don't have to send the firearms out to be repaired at an additional cost. As Assistant Chief Lehrman said, we presented, Lieutenant Barber presented a gun safety at the Glendale Fire Safety Camp. He passed out gun safety literature and gun locks to the parents of the children attending. During the month, we had 2 incidents where people fled from traffic stops on our officers. We were able to apprehend one person on warrants out of Springdale, and the other had numerous people flee the vehicle. However, the officer stayed with the vehicle after it crashed and got multiple guns and drugs from the vehicle. The guns are at the lab now, currently working to get DNA off of them to get suspects on it. We did arrest a suspect for theft from the elderly. She was responsible for the theft of over $3,000 using the elderly resident's credit card. She also attempted another $6,000 in additional purchases. We were able to arrest her and have her charged on numerous felonies. We had a very heavy traffic enforcement month. There was a lot of state enforcement requests. We were able to write 177 citations, which I think is only the second month this year where we've written more than 100. So our officers did an outstanding job this last month.
Very good. Okay.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you. Public Buildings and Historic Preservation, please.
We met on July 22nd after the finance meeting, and Elizabeth Aldages presented documentation on what's been going on with the flooding at the depot, and we discussed how to resolve the issue and measures to be taken to mitigate the water damage and prevent it from happening in the future, and there'll be more discussion on that a little later. Thank you.
Thank you. Streets, Public Improvements, and Lights.
Also did not meet this past month, but we'll be getting that committee together in the next several weeks.
Okay. Utilities, please.
The Utilities Committee did meet last Wednesday. We had a very light agenda. In previous meetings, there had been a resolution passed to get some additional information regarding a upcoming major expense for repair at the water plant. That information was provided. The balance of the agenda, we spent continued conversation on the opportunity, possibility, advantages and disadvantages of using the Greater Cincinnati Water Works as a provider for water as an alternative to our own plant. That has been an ongoing conversation for many meetings, and in the conclusion of this meeting, we have, the committee kind of felt that their timing was not appropriate at this time to pursue the question, although at some point I, as the chair, kind of feel that it's something that we need to look at in more detail. There's a lot of conversation, and I would ask that anyone who's interested to look at the minutes, which should be posted very soon, and we will meet again sometime in August. We don't have a date yet, but that's the meeting as it stands now, or the report, excuse me.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, next is the Treasurer's Report.
I forwarded the July report to council. The only other item that I wanted to provide was money market rates are still holding steady. We'll see what happens with the Fed reviews this again, but we're around 3.8%. The other thing too that I noticed is we've received more of our property taxes, not the full amount, but a portion of it, and it is in our checking account, which only earns like 1.3, so I'm going to be shifting some money out of there into money market until we need that money. Because just for an example, if I shift $600,000 out of there, it'll get us another $1,200 on a monthly basis.
That's good.
Until we need that money. So that is all.
Thank you, Mike. Becky, is there a clerk fiscal officer report?
Nope, no report.
No report, okay. So moving on then to new business. The first ordinance is ordinance 2025-39, an ordinance authorizing amendment of the 2025 appropriations of the general fund and declaring an emergency. This increase is for the work to be done at the depot. That was a result of the meeting we had with Building and Grounds. David, can you give us some background there?
Right. Thank you, Mayor. The conversation at the public buildings meeting was related to a number of projects that need to be completed at the train depot. There were 3 pieces of work, large pieces of work that needed to be completed. The first was waterproofing work through a vendor that GHP has selected and that GHP will be responsible for the payment of. The second is restoration work on the columns that support the structure after some concerns with the amount of water and just the general condition that those might need to be addressed, and additional electrical work to support the sump pump, the waterproofing work that GHP will be funding. So the appropriation here, $14,000, covers the $9,000 for the column restoration, and then provides a $6,000 maximum amount for the electrical work to get the building to the point where the waterproofing can be done. Don't anticipate needing all of it, but the committee's recommendation was $14,000 maximum. So we'll be proceeding with that, and hopefully we don't need to spend all of it.
Very good. So, and is there a motion for this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? All right, Madam Clerk. Oh, wait, is there a motion to dispense with the 3 reads? I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll then?
For ordinance 2025-39, to dispense with the 3 reads, Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Ms. Fleury.
Aye.
Ms. Rochelle.
Aye.
For ordinance 2025-39, Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Ms. Fleury.
Aye.
Ms. Rochelle.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so the ordinance passes. Next is ordinance 2025-40, an ordinance authorizing the village administrator to offer a surplus village vehicle for online auction and declaring an emergency. So this is to sell the fire truck, David?
That's right.
Okay, can you give us a little background here?
Certainly. This is an ordinance authorizing me to post the 1999 Freightliner on an online auction site service, Gov Deals, or the Hamilton County auction site, whichever is going to generate the most interest and increased chance of actually selling the vehicle. So that it's very straightforward and allows me to post it and requires it to be posted for 30 days. We'll work on the details such as price and other things with the fire department, but certainly circulate the link once it is posted. So if there's folks that are interested in it, they can find it. So
Okay. In between you and the fire department, you're aware of people who can steer us in the right direction on price and value?
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good.
And if I could just add one quick thing. At the factory, I was talking to several E1 representatives, and they asked for me to send them the link as well. They might have some people in mind, so
Fantastic.
can use that avenue as well.
Great, great, okay. So is there a motion for this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
And is there a motion to dispense with the 3 reads?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
For perspective, that fire truck is worth anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 per AI.
We want 50. All right, no, well, you set a record. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
For ordinance 2025-40, to dispense with the 3 reads, Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Ms. Fleury.
Aye.
Ms. Rochelle.
Aye.
For ordinance 2025-40, Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Ms. Fleury.
Aye.
Ms. Rochelle.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that ordinance passes, thank you. Next is a resolution. Resolution 2025-22, a resolution establishing a committee of the whole to consider and discuss the establishment of a charter government for the village of Glendale. So a little background here, and then I'll have David give some additional. We are currently a statutory government. That means we follow all the rules of the state of Ohio. We can create a little more flexibility for ourselves if we become a charter. And we're establishing a committee to discuss that, study it, and see if it's worthwhile going through the exercise of establishing a charter versus staying a statutory. This came out of the Laws Committee, so I'll let David or Joan, whoever wants to add to that.
We're looking at each other.
Yeah.
I think the purpose of this exercise out of the Laws Committee was for council to meet in a committee of the whole setting for maybe a little bit more open discussion, a little more free-flowing discussion, to evaluate sample charters, pros and cons, potential procedures for establishing it, essentially to create a game plan if it is desired for the village to go through with this. What would be required, what expectations could be, and what that process would look like. To also collect public input on the process and on the outcome, but essentially to wrap our heads around the idea. I think Joan, please feel free to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's just see whether it's suitable for the village of Glendale and get input, as David said, from residents, but also leaders in other municipalities who have gone through the process and that kind of thing. We have discussed it at the laws meeting, but we also thought that because it's such an important issue that all council members should be involved in this whole, effort.
I think
So,
that's a great idea.
yeah. So that's where that's where it stems from.
Okay.
And we are surrounded by many municipalities as our charter cities and villages, so.
Yes.
Many have. Does our solicitor know roughly, is there a percentage that are charter versus statutory?
I don't know. I would say about half the communities we work with seem to have their own. And size doesn't, have their
Okay.
own charter versus statutory. And there's not like bigger ones do and smaller. It's all varieties.
Kind of a mix, huh?
Yeah.
City Cincinnati is a charter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if the committee as a whole recommends that we pursue it, we would need 15 outside government official, non-governmental officials, 15 to form a committee,
Residents.
residents.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, there is a long process, and we'll get into that when we meet.
And I think that's why we meet as a whole, to make sure we want to travel down the path. There definitely
Right.
could be some advantages, but it's a laborious process, and I think we need to go into it with eyes open. Okay, so very, very good. We have this resolution. So is there a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and do we have to waive the 3 reads, Kathy? Okay, is there a motion to waive the 3 reads?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll for the resolution?
For Resolution 2025-22, to dispense with the 3 reads, Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basement.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldrich.
Aye.
Ms. Fleury.
Aye.
Ms. Verschow.
Aye.
For Resolution 2025-22, Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basement.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldrich.
Aye.
Ms. Fleury.
Aye.
Ms. Verschow.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That resolution passes. The next 2 resolutions are in a way, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Never mind.
Okay. The next 2 resolutions are in a way joined at the hip. One is a resolution for an additional tax levy in the amount of 5 mils, one 4.5 mils. At the end of our last Finance Committee meeting, I think we had landed Mr. Kreidler at 5. However, we were still kind of considering and jockeying with, is there a way to pace this out, way to pace this work out differently? Perhaps use a little bit more of the VPGI monies and perhaps even some state street funds to cover some other roads going forward, and try to reduce from 5 perhaps to 4.5. And you did that work accelerating some. We found when we accelerate too much, the interest ends up kind of eating you alive because you're borrowing too much, and it ends up being a kind of a negative for the village. But anyway, you had sent out a memo indicating that perhaps a 4.5, we could manage it, but we wanted, as we said, we would circulate the results of those studies to council before this meeting and give council an opportunity to weigh in. So with that background, Will, I'll let you take it from here and lead this discussion amongst council.
Yeah, the one thing, Mayor, to add differently from our finance meeting a couple weeks ago was Glendale did this about 30 years ago with a water utilities
Yes.
levy, and that was only 5 years, and then it sunsetted.
It did.
So this
What
would be
was the millage on it?
1.5 or 2, I believe. But then again, I mean, it was back in '99 when
I thought it was higher than that.
I don't think about 2 mils, if I'm remembering correctly. But
2
either
mils in
way,
99
For 10
would
years.
equal 10
Yeah,
mils
it
today.
was just
For 5
5
years.
It was
Five
just
years.
5,
It
so
was
that
It was a shorter one, but I believe that was one of the highest passage rates of any levy.
it was
we've
close to
ever had.
70-30 if it was not 70-30.
And 30% of the people vote no on every tax anyway.
So
that
when
was-
David and the mayor and I met a few months ago actually, that was ideal. Ideally, I thought we could do this in 5 years, but then, as you saw in the memo, even at about 4.5 mil in 10 years, you can see 3 years we still dip into, if you look under as point 2, you can see for 3 of those years, we still dip into negative cash flow from this levy income. So then that would be dipping into VPGI or 2 of the different state street funds. And the treasurer and I have talked, 4.5 mil would get about $613,000 a year for these 10 years. So one thing would be, what if we just borrowed a lot more up front and then try to beat inflation and get a lot more of these streets done in the early years? And as far as I understand, that's gonna be up to a future, if this passes in November, that'll be up to a future finance committee.
It would be up to a future finance committee, however, a preliminary study, if you're considering that you have a 3% average rate of inflation, your loan's gonna be 5-6%, the interest starts to take advantage or eat into your dollars.
Right.
If you borrow, it starts to become a negative situation, borrowing too much.
Right.
But a future council can look at that, absolutely, if it turns out to be a savings.
Right, and if you think inflation is gonna be tough over in the next 10 years, let's get it over with.
Maybe it's get it over with.
Yeah.
But a future council can study that. If interest rates drop to 1%, we might be just like Apple Computer. Let me borrow some money. All right, but anyway.
So,
Smarter minds.
so that
would be here
was,
then.
so that was why you got David's memo today, which is totally different than how the finance meeting, concluded the other day. So, a reminder, 4.5 mils would be $158 per $100,000 on your house. So $158 of new taxes per 100K.
And 5 is?
5 was $175
Right,
per
okay.
100,000. And so 3 years it could dip into negative cash flow, but again, we have VPGI monies to cover that. We have VPGI monies to cover these side streets, so we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do other projects while we do this one, if this were to pass in November. We've looked at, the last 2 years, we've looked at various things, and exactly what the mayor said in the mayor's report. It's either we're gonna have to cut some services, or we're gonna have to figure out additional tax revenues down the road. So we're gonna have town halls in September,
Yes.
and Amy requested that be on Zoom, because not always do we get great attendance at those things,
We
so.
can do that. And they'll be
We'll get that
recorded.
online,
They'll be recorded as well.
and that's all I have.
Yeah, the other piece would be, you said there could be cut services, or possibly we just can't repave the roads to the level they need to be. You'd have a, 5-10 year surface versus a 20-30 year surface. The roadbed situation is serious, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way that road's been since probably before any of us were alive.
It's a matter of this generation pays for it, or you just pass it down the road and the next one pays for it. And there won't be any VPGI left, because we're draining that at a very fast pace, which in 20 years, it's gone, at the rate that we're spending right now.
we use it to repave roads, it'd be gone by then.
Yep, well, it's, yeah, if we use it for that, it's gone.
So with that background, I don't know, is there any discussion amongst council?
I'm still supporting the 5 mil. The deficit years really worry me. And it's $20 difference. I mean, I can't see us doing. David, you made a good case here, but this is serious, and it's not. I mean, clearly it's serious, but it is something that we've heard over and over again from the residents. That we need to do this, and we need to stop, I think, focusing on just enough, or good enough, excuse me, what is good enough? I am still in favor of the 5 mil that we voted.
I'd like to add just very quickly, I didn't circulate them as part of this memo because I didn't want us to stray into starting to pick the VPGI forecast apart with one project over another, but adding these amounts in, and these amounts, what I'm referring to is the deficits for the 3 years, under 4.5, and then the additional repaving work that is listed on the memo in section, I believe it's section 3, West Oak, North Troy, and then a few of the smaller streets, Lincoln, Cole, etc. Those being built in to the forecasts here have a spending over that 10-year period, or actually over the next, looks like 7 years or so, about $1 million out of VPGI for road work anyway. But the good news being that because of the availability of funds under this permanent improvement levy, then VPGI is used to the tune of $1 million as opposed to the tune of $6.5 million, which would essentially drain the fund. So there still would be VPGI funding used for road repair, road repaving projects. Of course, there is funding to make up those 4.5 mil shortcomings, the deficits, and projects that would not fit within that forecast. And that's council's consideration as to how much we believe those amounts are going to impact the VPGI fund in the next 10 years or so. But it would all of these permanent improvement levy scenarios do include some use of VPGI for repaving projects. It just does not become the only source of funding for paving projects.
I have a question. Do you feel that your projection for the 4.5 is somewhat conservative?
Yes, I feel both the 4.5 and the 5, all of the projections are conservative for the cost of completing the work. So seeing a deficit of about 150 does not exactly alarm me for the time being.
Because we may not see it.
Because there's a lot that can change between now and when that deficit shows up in 2031. Just to give folks a little perspective on that, our VPGI forecasts start bundling the years into 5-year chunks when we get out to 2031. So we're not even firmly grasping what we're thinking could come in that amount of time. So I think for the sake of everything is in flux and moving and changing, yes, those conservative estimates could
pretty conservative, like it's a worst case.
Could benefit, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in the long term could benefit.
So it may not be as bad as it shows on his paperwork based on that.
Or worse.
Yeah.
Well, it could always
Exactly.
be,
There you go. There you
worse. We could open up a road and gremlins might pop out.
One thing I forgot to
Make money.
mention was David, in the finance committee meeting, David mentioned something I didn't realize, that we might be able to get a contractor to lock in who wants all of this business spread out over 10 years.
Yeah,
So
that's very cool.
we might be able to get someone to lock in, and we will know our
Well,
costs
that would
in
be,
today's dollars.
If we did that, there would be a tremendous savings if we were able to pull that off. And we want to try to lock that in if we can.
Like the gas rates or the electric rates like you.
That would
did
be
there.
that would really be a tremendous savings. Where 4.5 would definitely cover it.
Well, we'd have to look at how we can do appropriations and commit to that contract to time that out that far.
If we could save that
But
much,
that
we'll
would be
figure it
Okay,
out.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, they would put in inflation kickers in, obviously, so we
Yeah.
would
But they'd be
know.
known.
Right.
They'd be known. As much as we can take away the guesswork.
So even if a levy were to pass, we still, knowing that that future income, future revenue would come in, we still would have to put in.
It's an exercise of understanding what the estimated revenue is going to be versus what the contract amount is going to be, and understanding how carrying essentially that, what would for us be a massive appropriation for this project against that vendor, understanding how that would be reported and booked in our financial statements. But if there is an opportunity to do that, it doesn't necessarily have to be over a 10-year period. It could be over a 3-year period, which is a lot more manageable and a lot easier to anticipate any kind of fluctuation in revenue or anything like that. So I think there's a potential for it. I think that I would go back to the conservative nature of these price estimates first as a potential pressure valve for how much all this work is going to end up costing, before I would go to some contractor that's going to sign a 10-year deal. But you know, if they can get a lot of work ordered up front, we can see what options we have to get that underway.
And how do you feel about oil prices?
Yeah.
No clue.
What's the deadline to get this on the ballot?
What's that?
One more time, what's the deadline to get this on the ballot?
Wednesday at 4 p.m.
We need to decide tonight.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
We will decide
Okay.
tonight. Yeah.
So we're gonna vote on both resolutions, but only one is,
So we will vote on one resolution, 23 or 24.
okay.
23 is 4.5 mils, 24 is 5 mils.
Let's do
The
it.
other one will be tabled into the void.
Got it, well, let's do it.
So if you have a preference, we should have a motion for the not preferred ordinance to be tabled. Do a vote for that. Then we can go through the other ordinance. If there's passage, then we're fine. If there's not passage and we have to go back to the other one, we would bring it back to the table, if that's something that you would want to do.
Then I move we table resolution 2025-23.
I'm gonna file a motion that we table
24.
2025-24.
Well, we can't have dueling
I know.
motions.
This is like Clue.
I just think 4.5 is gonna have a better chance to pass.
I actually second Will's motion.
Okay. You have to consider you do have to consider your chance for passage. And it's something, and we have to consider that we're dealing with villagers, residents' money.
Well, we're here, we pay it too, I mean, it's not,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
we're not,
Yeah, some of it's more than others.
we live here too.
Understood,
Okay.
understood.
I don't
Well,
know, what's everybody else
I'm
say?
sorry, I shouldn't say it that way, but I always put the resident in front of council in terms of, I guess. Okay, so with that said,
Is there a second?
how do we control this?
Does any, I got
Okay,
a second, does
so,
Nancy have a
yes.
We have a vote, we have a motion and a second, you can do a roll
Motion,
call vote
a motion,
to
a
table,
motion and a second to table.
and then attempt to take
Which
action
one are you
on the other.
tabling?
2025-24,
24.
the 5 mil
Got it.
levy.
And then, okay, so a motion to table that, so will we take a roll call vote to table that one, Madam Clerk?
Which one are we doing?
We're taking a roll call vote to table
The 5 mil levy.
Resolution 2025-24,
Okay.
the 5 mil.
Okay, on the motion to table 2025-24,
The 5 mil levy.
the 5 mil levy, Ms. Masenko,
No,
Mr. Basemith,
We're gonna table the
to
5
table the
mil.
5 mil levy.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge,
No.
Ms. Fleury,
Aye.
Ms. Rochelle.
Aye.
Okay. So
Passes 4 to 2.
that passes 4-2. So now, Madam Solicitor, we,
We should just go our normal course of business with the
Normal
other one.
course on the
and
other.
If there's passage, then
all
we're
right, so,
good.
now we're back to Resolution 2025-23, a resolution determining to proceed to levy an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation within the village, that being for a 4.5 mil levy. Is there a motion for this ordinance, or the resolution, I'm sorry, is there a motion for the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
And is there a motion to dispense with the 3 reads?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
For Resolution 2025-23, to dispense with the 3 reads, Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Ms. Fleury.
Aye.
Ms. Rochelle.
Aye.
Thank you. For Resolution 2025-23, Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Ms. Fleury.
Aye.
Ms. Rochelle.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so the resolution passes. Thank you, everyone. I've not been through one where you table one first and then vote second. Is there anything else tonight for discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.